Cool. So, welcome to Philosophy Roulette number 229, where I read and review philosophy papers live on air for the viewing public on Twitch, and later for the everyone else not live on YouTube. But yeah, so what I do here is I take suggestions. People, I was asked to read a 70-page paper last time. That took a little longer than I was planning. Usually shorter papers. But here we are on the front page of Phil Papers. Let's see what is new in the wide world of academic philosophy writing. Or publishing, I should say. If fetuses are persons, abortion is a public health crisis. Let's see. Bioethics is so much fun. I have one like right here. This is also a bioethics paper about ectogenesis. Is such a complicated and like fraught topic, really. Let's see if it's here. Ooh, it is. Let's see how long it is. 14 pages. All right. So this is definitely a possibility. Could read this. I don't really feel like reading a bioethics paper right now. I'm a little fried. I was like, best thing to do when you're fried is go read like really intensive philosophy. That's great. We got more philosophy of biology. Again, probably not the best decision making on my part, but that never seemed to stop me in the past. So, this is 22 pages, a little longer than I want to read, but it's like this kind of like big font and like a little bit of spaced here, so it's not like that tight, but you know what? I can think about this one too. Just think about it. It's kind of long. I want to do something short. It's just definitely the best decision to make right now. Pathology as a phenomenological tool, urgentness, another look at reflection. I mean, you always are looking at your reflection. How else could you see it if you weren't looking at it? Alright, so this one's not available. 1 to 17. A very reasonable length for this sort of stuff. But, shoo. Alright, so can't really do much with that. Let's see how long this, 1 to 31. That's not happening. But what I could do is I'm going to go take a look at urgentness, and we can look at the Continental Philosophy Review and see if we have anything of, oopsie, wrong one, of like reasonable length. Corrections, not a, what I want to do. Let's see. Zoomorphism, 14 pages, by Benz Nene. I think I've read stuff by Benz before. Benz is good. A Stallnacher semantics for McGee conditionals. Unfortunately, I can't really read logic out loud because you just gotta say too many symbols. I actually was talking to a professor who used to read books for the blind into a cassette so that they might read it, and he did a full logic textbook doing that. He said it was terrible. He said he had no idea why they wanted this done. Because it wasn't like an academic thing. It was just like a book on the list for things to read to the blind. Maybe someone requested it, but wow, crazy. Ben's, yeah, I knew it would be here because Ben seems to be up and up on this. All right, let's just take a look at what Ben's has to. See how long this is. I mean, it said it was short. How many pages are we? This is not short at all. This is 38. It is double spaced. I know you guys can't see at the moment because it's a doc file, but I'm not. No. It's a little bit too much for me right now. I mean, see, it's only 14. Maybe I shouldn't be so critical. It's only 14 urgentness pages, or 15. So we'll consider that also. Continental Philosophy Review. These people tend to never write short, but let's see. The Body Ideal in French, 15 pages, 4 pages. What is this? Is it just a review? Wait, 4 pages. Cinesemiotics, what's up? Ha! That sounds like a good night, Cinesemiotics. Yeah, I was like, I'm not Oh. Let's just give this a shot. Like, I can't really watch YouTube content on my show because I can get blocked, but let's just give it a real quick look. Okay. Sister Wendy's Odyssey art criticism. Awesome. Awesome. I have to come back to that later. Yeah, well, this isn't one time where it's not me being fascist. It's the algorithms. It's techno-fascism. It's the algorithms that govern our lives now. We have to abide by them, or else we get canceled by the algorithms that govern YouTube and like the entire world and Google and all that stuff. So that's the current state of the universe. Surveillance techno-fascism. And that's not my fault. I did not do that. Like, if you had asked me if I wanted surveillance techno-fascism, I would have said no. I do not want surveillance techno-fascism. But no one asked me, so. Not available. I would have been happy to read something about some French philosophy, and nah, it's just not dealing with that. That's too bad. Okay, so this Bentz is actually looking like 14 pages of Bentz Nana is not so bad. So bad. Okay, let's keep going. Let's go see if we can find anything else that's reviews. European Journal of Philosophy is a fine journal too, and so is Inquiry. Just read a bunch of stuff from Inquiry the other day, and it was pretty nice. So let's give Inquiry another shot. Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. No one expects like techno-fascism apparently either. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm more than happy to take suggestions. 30 pages. I'm not reading 30 pages right now. Sorry. Pacific Philosophical Quarterly. They are a double column thing, so all their papers are deceptively short, but that's because they're twice as long. So let's do the very short papers. No, they don't have very short papers. Let's see. Maybe it's not. Towards a Hybrid Account of Luck. Did I read this? I feel like I might have. See, not only Madonna, also Hold On, that would be fun. I could use some aesthetics again. Knowledge and Truth, a Skeptical Challenge. I feel like I read this. Yeah, Factive. Knowledge is Factive. I feel like I've read that. Kantian Cognitivism. I can't handle Kant right now. I feel like I read this, but that doesn't mean anything what I feel like. Let's see. Is this available? 15 pages. You see how this is already purple? I've clicked on this before. What is going on? Yeah, this is, Well, how long is this? I mean, I'll save this for later if Cinesemiotics comes up with something. 14 pages and it's aesthetics? Oh, yes, please. This is getting saved. Nice. Okay, so this is cool because I don't think I read this. Oh, you want to read about genetic drift? Okay, so this is a Stanford Encyclopedia article. I will tell you, I know something about genetic drift. Ooh, they just updated it. I haven't seen this update. All right, so, let's see. These are not short articles, so I can't really, like, I could go through as much of this as I want, but, like, I can. But if we want to do the genetic drift, all right, we'll take a look at this. And, okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to take a look at genetic drift here. So, you want the... Oh, now you want the Madonna one. Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is actually a topic I've looked into quite a bit. The causal structure of evolution, I've put a lot of effort into understanding. So the concept of genetic drift is something I know. No genetic drift, it's a scam. Yeah, it kind of is a scam. It's kind of like it's a catch-all for when they don't understand what the heck is going on, and they say it's a drift. It's fake news? Oh, so you wanted me to read something as fake news, and who is the fascist now? Alright, so we're going to go do this. I see not only Madonna, but a hole in the picture, because that's a great title. So. Oh, so you were sending me what? Something you just thought sounded like bad? Wow. Getting scammed by my viewers. Okay, so you can go grab a hold of this. You just clicked on the find it on Scholar. Did I hit download on this already? Yeah, I did. Downloads. Open. Okie dokie. We don't need this bar here. Cool. No. Okay, phew. Alright, so we're going to do this. No, you misunderstood. I was trying to give you a suggestion, and you brought up Madonna. Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I was talking about philosophy of biology, and genetic drift is a topic within philosophy of biology. And so, it's a great topic. But, it'd be something actually that I know something about, so. Not exactly roulette. I'd be like, oh, I know this topic. Okie dokie. But instead, we're going to read this paper by Alberto Voltolini. I apologize for how I say your name. I'm assuming you're Italian. I see not only a Madonna, but also a hole in the picture. So let's find out. And as usual, feel free to ask questions, not only Cinesemiotics, everyone else in chat out there watching. The Church of St. George in Monte Morano, Tuscany, Italy, houses a curious late Gothic painting, the Virgin of the Cat Flap, that is so named for, as the tradition says, one of the church's curates opened a hole in it in order to let the cats pass through. Clearly enough, the hole is a real, not a depicted one, unlike, say, Holy, Holy, Holy Vessels, a 2015 painting by Susan Summers, which presents it as its subject some holy female bodies. Okay. This makes people intuitively think that in saying that we see a hole in the picture, we do not mean the same thing as in saying that we see a Madonna in it. True fact, many Italian names sound like Italian restaurant menu items. Yeah. Well, Italian, I mean, it's all one language. As regards that picture, we see a hole in its vehicle, that is, its physical basis, as much as in it we see cracks, cuts, and other physical factors qualifying the vehicle per se. In other terms, we see a hole as something that is out there, as standing in the spatial relation of being in with the other items we overall see, namely the very vehicle itself. It's Alberto Voltolini. Down, you can see it here, I guess. Yeah, here. Yeah, so I guess, is this sort of like trompe-l'oeil, where the author is saying, look, you can have a hole painted into a picture, but you couldn't quite tell if that hole is in the picture itself or it's painted as a hole in the painting. Okay. Would you like breadsticks with that? Yes, I would. I like breadsticks. Yet we see Madonna in the picture just as we see it in a wooden base on which the Virgin stands up, and a curtain behind the Virgin herself, namely as what constitutes the picture's subject, that is, the scene that the picture presents, yet is not out there. Okay, so this is, I don't know if this is the picture in question. It might be. I can't quite see if there's a cat flap in it. Let's actually just zoom in real fast. I can't, I don't know, maybe is this the cat flap here or something else? I don't know. Yeah, well. Okay, whatevers. Some important theoretical pictorial experience Some important theories of pictorial experience have agreed with this intuition. Indeed, along with Wolheim, one may say that pictorial experience is a sui generis experience of twofold seeing in which, by virtue of seeing that picture's vehicle in the configurational fold of that experience, in that very vehicle, we somehow discern a Madonna and the above other things in the recognitional fold of that experience. This seemingly stresses that no spatial relation of being in actually holds between the picture's vehicle and all such things constituting the picture's subject, the scene where all such things figure as its constituents. Indeed, Wolheim himself claims that the picture's subject is seen in a pictorial space that is completely disconnected from the real space. Thus, whatever belongs to the picture's subject is seen in the picture, not in the sense we appeal to when we say that a physical element is seen in the picture's vehicle, that is, as an element that stands in the being in relation with the vehicle. Yeah, so I think this is just trying to make the distinction that in the sort of the world of the picture, there's certain objects that are there. But in then the physical presentation of the picture, the vehicle of it, there might be like little cracks in the paint or like a hole in the canvas, things like that. But that's in some sense separate from the world that is being painted. And we have to do two sort of ways of seeing the picture, what is in the painting proper, and then what is part of the way it was painted, which includes like the, parts of the canvas or whatever. Okay, yet these intuitions notwithstanding, note that we may well say the following. I see a Madonna in the picture as well as a whole. So, I guess, and what the author was saying is there are multiple versions of being in above, and so this in is being used in two different senses. The Madonna is in the picture in terms of the picture itself, and the whole is in the sort of the physical manifestation, the physical part of that is used to represent the Madonna. By means of the implicit anaphoric link that affects the preposition in occurring twice in one, both explicitly after Madonna and implicitly after a whole, one seemingly shows that in occurs twice in order to mean precisely the same spatial relation of being in as being instantiated twice in the same circumstance. Yeah. Note that this use of in one is not isolated at all. Suppose that the Tuscan fresco were very damaged in such a way that a fissure divide the parts of the picture that respectively present the Madonna's head and the Madonna's torso. One may then say, in the picture I see both a Madonna's head and under the fissure her torso. Or even suppose both that the subject of that fresco also contained a cat as crouched under the Madonna, and that a real cat emerged from the flap. Then one may say, I see two cats in the picture. So you've got a cat that was like painted in, and then a cat sticking its head through the hole that was the cat flap in the picture, but they were actually using it as an actual cat flap. And so the cat was using the cat flap, but that cat was like a living cat versus the painted cat that was standing next to the cat flap. Ways of seeing, you said that, but there's also time of the John Berger BBC documentary, highly recommended. Okay, good to note. And we should all go check out that above here. Not this one. We've got the Sister Wendy. There we go. Gotta get to Sister Wendy later on too. Okay, in this paper I want first of all to show that these uses are not weird at all. Appearances notwithstanding, in all the three above sentences, in must be taken as being the very same spatial relation of being in as occurring either between elements of the picture's subject, occurring either between elements in the picture's vehicle or between the picture's vehicle itself and elements of the picture's subject. Okay, so we've got, the picture, the painting, and the picture, the paint, and like the canvas and stuff. Moreover, this commonality of meaning is not accidental at all, for there is a way of accounting for the nature of pictorial experience that justifies why, so meant, the above uses are correct. According to this way, pictorial experience still is a twofold seeing in a la Wolheim, whose folds, however, are respectively a veridical perception of the picture's vehicle, the configurational fold, and an illusory but not delusory perception of the picture's subject, the recognitional fold. In veridical perceiving the vehicle, one also knowingly non-veridically perceives the subject as lying in a region of the real space that departs from where the vehicle is located. First, since the recognitional fold is non-veridical, the subject's elements are only seen as standing in that region. Second, one knows that such a fold is non-veridical precisely because in the configurational fold, one veridically sees that the picture's vehicle stands as a certain boundary of that region. The architecture of this paper is as follows. In section 2, I will try to show how, from a linguistic point of view, the main possible replies against the idea that in is used literally throughout 1 as well as 2 and 3 can be countered. In section 3, I will provide an account of pictorial perception that shows why such use is legitimate. Okay, so this is sort of a... the author here is basically going to say, look, we have only one way of representing in. It's not really two different ways, even though the world that is represented in a picture, what is represented, does seemingly have different properties than the paint and the canvas itself. So even they're saying it's non-veridical, but the in being in that picture is still all the same sort of thing. So this in is going to be consistent, even though there seems like there's different kinds of in, in the painting or in the physical thing that the painting is made out of. So, I mean, you could immediately say, well, you can flip this around. You could say, well, we're going to have the other way. There's many ins and then there's different sorts of other stuff. But this author is going to go just hardcore, say, nope, we're going to have only one kind of in and our perception is the same throughout, but there's something going on with the painting. So they're going to change up how we understand paintings, but keep our linguistic practices stable. Okay, so that seems like the strategy here, and they're using this Madonna painting with a cat flap as the sort of, example to drive the discussion here. Okay. Section 2. The failure of replies against the linguistic evidence. To begin with, a defender of the specific use of in as regards pictorial experience may reply as follows against the alleged linguistic evidence in favor of the literality of in. What is this word? Literality? Is that the right way to say it? The literality of in the above sentences, particularly in 1. Anaphoric links do not require identity of meaning in the expression used, as the following examples show. I drank a bottle and then I smashed it. Norman Mailer likes to read himself. In 4, the pronoun it designates a container rather than its content, unlike the term it is anaphorically linked, a bottle. In 5, himself does not designate Norman Mailer but his works, even if it is anaphorically linked to the name Norman Mailer, which obviously designates the writer. Hence, that defender may say that in its second implicit token in 1, in does mean the spatial recognition of being in, holding between the items, the picture's vehicle and the whole, that constitute the object of sight that a certain visual perception referred to by the verb see is about. Yet in its first explicit token, it must be directed attached to the verb see as meaning a particular different experience state of seeing in, having the Madonna as its object, qua constituent of the picture's subject. Okay, so basically, yeah, you can't drink a physical bottle. You drank what was in the bottle and then you smashed it. But see, you can change the reference over the course of a sentence. Yeah. And Norman Mailer likes to read himself, so he likes to read his own work. And it also could be said that Norman Mailer is a person who likes to read. It depends what you mean, but there's different ways to designate. Yeah. So, and of course, Norman Mailer is not reading himself because you can't read a human. You have to read something written down. So yeah. Anyway, so the fact that you can switch up what is getting referred to within the course of one sentence that's pretty reasonable. Okay. However, I retort to that defender that, in general, anaphoras allow that different anaphorically linked tokens of the relevant expressions do not preserve the same meaning only if there is a pragmatic function connecting different meanings involved by such tokens. Indeed, as regards to the above examples, 4 mobilizes a content container pragmatic function so that a bottle designates the content of a container, while the pronoun it anaphorically links to it designates that very container, which is pragmatically connected, in this case, metonymically to that content. Likewise, 5 mobilizes an author-work pragmatic function so that Norman Mailer designates the famous writer, while himself, although anaphorically linked to it, designates his work, again metonymically connected to the writer. Yet, as regards 1, there is no evidence of a pragmatic function connecting the different meanings of the 2 tokens of it, one explicit, the other implicit, that one allegedly mobilizes. Okay, so the author here is saying that there's something pragmatic going on here, although there's no indication of anything pragmatic being indicated, because you just say you drank a bottle and you smashed it. There's nothing else there to it. But they're saying, look, there's some pragmatic something or other going on here. So you have to be careful about what you're just sort of implicitly pushing onto words, though. Granted, continuing, and please, anyone out there ask questions. Granted, there is an exception to the above necessary condition for failure of co-significance with anaphoras. In a few cases, meaning for anaphorically linked tokens of a term differ even when there is no relevant pragmatic function connecting them. Yet this happens with puns, as in the following zeugma. After 2 unsuccessful marriages, I find myself keeping my guard up along with my underpants. Alright, so why does this happen with puns? Let's see. I'm not exactly sure what they're making. The point is here, but let's see. This presents a joking together zeugma, since the implicit anaphoric link occurring in it ties the distinct tokens of the relevant term involved to keep up, which, however, have utterly different meanings, that is, meanings that are connected by no pragmatic function. I mean, I always wonder about that. Keeping your guard up and keeping your underpants up, keeping your guard up is to keep your hands up. Keeping your underpants up is to, again, pull up with your hands. But to keep your guard up in the emotional sense is the same thing as you're protecting yourself, but they're doing it with the physical thing. So it's you're saying they don't have anything in common, but they kind of do. You put up a wall. I mean, that's the whole point of the guard up with underpants up. So yeah. So I'm always confused a little bit. Yes, there's a significant difference in puns, but a lot of times there is, the whole point of the pun is that there is something that is the same going on. I mean, granted, if you're making a pun between bank and bank, the river and the financial institution, yeah, you can do that, but it's not, those are never funny because there's nothing going on right there. I guess the tank jokes with fish, a fish tank and the fish being in a tank, but in a military tank, those have been funny. But again, it's because the fish could be in a fish tank and they could also be in a military tank. That's kind of why those work. So there's always something working there. There's more to jokes than I think this author is giving credit for. But this is bugaboo of mine. So yeah. So I don't know about this claim right here. This utterly different. How utterly is utterly here? All right. But if we harken back to 1, I don't even remember what it was, but all the examples prior to this one, 1 is not punny at all. Curious if you like, but not punny. The anaphoric link tying the two tokens of it in 1 makes no shared jokes arise, as instead should if the meanings of such tokens were utterly different. There is indeed no wittiness in uttering 1. Yeah. So let's go back up to 1 real fast. I'm trying to remember what 1 was. I see a Madonna in the picture as well as a hole. Yeah, there's nothing punny about that. Where were we? Okay. In order to better see the point, consider the difference between the following 2 sentences. The first exhibits what is taken to be the most famous zeugma in English. She came home in a flood of tears and a sedan chair. Okay. Where the preposition in is used twice with different... Yeah. So, in this sense, where the preposition in is used twice with different meanings. The second is a sense basically analogous to one that one may utter in reporting one's pictorial experience when facing Alberto Burri's 1953 abstract painting Sackcloth, which results out of producing a certain collage on an already torn jute sack. I see a landscape in the picture as well as a whole. One may appreciate the wittiness of uttering in twice with different meanings in 7, yet no such appreciation may occur as regards 8, for it presents no zeugma at all. Yeah, so being in a flood of tears and in a sedan chair. Different states you can be in, sitting and crying. Let me stress that 8 is perfectly like 1. I see a landscape in the picture as well as a whole. Yeah, it's, well, very similar sentence. For unlike the aforementioned holy, holy, holy vessels, the whole one talks about in it does not contribute to determine the picture's subject. Granted, a physical whole might be exploited as having a depictive value, as when natural cavities in a deranged building are flanked by the depiction of a nose and a mouth in order for a face to be overall seen in that building. But in sackcloth, the whole is already there. The whole that is already there has no such value. It is just a physical feature of the jute sack, among with other such physical features as having no depictive value whatsoever. Say the sack's weight. Yeah. At this point, the defender of the specific use of in as regards pictorial experience may retort that the linguistic datum at stake has been improperly accommodated. For in 1, the relevant meaning shifts affects not only the For in 1, the relevant meaning shift affects not only the preposition in, but also the I don't even know this word, syntagm, the picture. In 1 prime's first part, the picture is indeed used to mean the picture as an interpreted item, that is, the vehicle plus its depictive content, the icon, to give it a name, not the mere vehicle itself. This is rather meant by the second implicit token of that syntagm. Hence, unlike the second implicit token of in, its first explicit token in 1 does not mean the spatial recognition of being in, but it has an utterly different meaning, whatever it is. Okay, I mean, we're still arguing over what the inness of means in the different parts of the sentence, so I'm just trying to, I guess, shake that out. Well, let's continue and see where we get. First of all, however, it is implausible that the first token of the picture in 1 is used to mean the icon rather than the mere picture's vehicle. Most theoreticians indeed agree that what is seen in the picture is actually seen in its vehicle. Moreover, this move is unhelpful for that defender, for if in its token of 1, the whole locution in the picture had utterly different meanings, that is, pragmatically disconnected meanings, the anaphoric link between such tokens would remain totally unexplained, since 1, as we saw before, is not punny at all. Yeah, so if you're not... So what the author is doing here is they're saying, look, there's no confusion, there's nothing punny, and there's no, like, a double meaning that we are recognizing immediately when we're talking about two ways of being in one painting. So if you're gonna like die on that hill, you have to explain why no one actually thinks those are interesting sentences. So the author here is saying, look, because the sentence is so mundane, you really can't say that you have to, like, someone would have to do much more work to build up the fact that there's two different kinds of in that one sentence. Now, you might say, all right, fine, there's some metaphysics going on there, something else, but you have to take the linguistic evidence into account, and I think that's what the author is trying to do here, is, take seriously how people use the sentence, and, I mean, for whatever that's worth, people can be wrong about how they think about the world. We change our minds all the time, but still, why is it that we don't even blink when we say that sentence, whereas on punny sentences, well, we know they're punny. At this point, the defender of the specific use of in as regards pictorial experience may counter-reply that even if the picture's vehicle is mobilized twice in 1, both as it regards the scene in Madonna and regards the whole scene in it is so mobilized in different ways. For as regards Madonna, One mobilizes the vehicle's design properties, that is, the properties that are responsible for the fact that a certain subject is seen in it, while as regards the whole, one mobilizes the vehicle's mere surface properties, that is, its physical properties that play no depictive role. Thus, one is actually used to mean one prime. I see Madonna in the vehicle's design properties and a whole in the vehicle's mere surface properties. Okay, so now we're getting back to the what is depicted versus what is the physical characteristics of the material that are then later used in the depiction. Okay, to begin with, I am unclear whether this reading accounts for the anaphora in one, for again it is hard to see a pragmatic relation between mere surface properties and design properties. Indeed, the two kinds of properties do not seem to covariate. Paintings made by the same material can have different design properties, and vice versa. However, let me grant that one may read one as one prime. Yet this simply corroborates the hypothesis that in is not ambiguous in it. For both the design properties and the mere surface properties are properties of the vehicle. The former are basically the vehicle's color and shapes, while the latter are its typically material properties. So meaning one as one prime precisely strengthens the idea that both the Madonna, qua part of the picture's subject, and the whole, qua part of the picture's vehicle, are seen as standing in the vehicle. Okay, so the question is, how are you deciding what counts as what is depicted versus what is the physical characteristics? Where do you get to draw that line? And so this is a fair question. Why do you get to draw the line where you just, even though there might be a conventional place to draw the line between what counts as being depicted in a painting? I mean, the author is kind of battling against that here. At this point, the defender of the specific use of in as regards pictorial experience may put forward a less radical alternative reading of one, for she may rejoinder that one does mobilize a pragmatic function, yet this function does not connect allegedly different meanings of in, but only the different references of that the token of in one possess as qualifying its truth conditional content. Indeed, first of all, the second implicit token of in refers to a certain portion of the real space, while the first explicit token shift its reference to a certain point of the altogether different pictorial space, although it keeps the same meaning as the second one. As I said at the very beginning, this is the space that some theories of pictorial experience postulate as the sui generis locus, where the events that are presented in the relevant pictorial experience are supposed to happen. So there is indeed a difference between the real and the pictorial space. Yet this difference affects just the reference, but not the meaning of in. In this respect, one is used to mean the same as one double prime. I see Madonna in the picture there, as well as a whole in the picture here. Okay, so now you've got two completely separate things. Like there's a there in the pictorial space, and then there's a hole in the picture here in the quote-unquote real space. So you've got a complete disconnect between the content of the picture and the medium of the picture, in this case, the canvas. This is not what I thought this paper was going to be, but it's okay. It's just the same. Still good. I was not expecting an analysis of being in. Okay. Moreover, that defender may go on saying this referential shift is possible, for this time there is a pragmatic connection linking such reference. Indeed, the pictorial space is dependent on the real space. Depending on how things are configured. Can't you just say configured? Why do you have to say configured? I mean, seriously, come on. Depending on how things are configured in the real space, things are correspondingly configured in the pictorial space. Indeed, once one alters how the spots lying in the real space where the picture's vehicle is also located are spatially related, a different such relation also occurs as far as the things one grasps in the pictorial space are concerned. For example, if one changes a tiny part of the flesh-colored spot to a black long spot in a certain area of the vehicle of Leonardo's La Gioconda, one passes from seeing it in an enigmatic feminine figure to seeing in the resulting vehicle in Marcel Duchamp's LHOOQ. I'm blanking on. I know what the name is of this is. Is this? Yeah, whatever. Marcel Duchamp something from Heated, an enigmatic mustached feminine figure. Oh, okay, that's right. It's the that one. Hence, coming back to one, even if the two involved tokens of in have the same meaning, the first explicit token of in refers to the spatial relation of being in occurring in the real space, while a second implicit token of in refers to the same spatial relation, yet occurring in the pictorial space. As the paraphrase of 1 into 1 double prime shows, in works there as an indexical expression that, the anaphorical link notwithstanding, contextually shifts its reference for pragmatic reasons, while however preserving its linguistic meaning. In this respect, things in 1 stand just as in the following case. Number 9. Tomorrow I attend a performance of Richard III. In battle, think of me and drop your useless sword. Although in 9 the different tokens of the indexicals tomorrow Although in 9 the different tokens of the indexicals tomorrow and I respectively have the same linguistic meaning, the first token of tomorrow refers to a real day, while its second implicit token refers to a fictional day. Likewise, the first token of I refers to a real agent, while the second token of the indexical me refers to a fictional agent. For the fictional temporal sequence and the fictional agent are pragmatically connected with the real temporal sequence and the real agent respectively, since the former are respectively parasitic on the latter. Indeed, these fictional parameters inherit the dependence on real parameters that fiction in general has on reality, both epistemologically and ontologically, as Walton taught us. Yeah, let me just pause here for a sec. Does anyone have any questions about this? Because, I mean, now we're talking about fiction versus real, and that's kind of what the whole thing is going on here. You've got like a fictional world, like the world of the painting or the world of the book or the play Richard III. So you've got like that world, and so you're actually, this whole thing is talking about world shifting, where you're in a different universe, what we call fictional universe. I mean, what exactly that amounts to is a matter of, philosophical argument. But like, so only you've got things in fictional universes and you got things in real universes, but the word in works the exact same way in both a fictional universe and in the quote unquote real universe. And so the author is saying, look, even if you try to like separate out the worlds, the word in is actually having the exact same meaning. So the word in does not change. It's the rest of the universe that has changed, not the being in. Okay. From the epistemological point of view, one could not make believe something if one could not believe that something. From an ontological point of view, something can be fictionally true. For example, that there are three bears over there, only if something else is really true, that there are 3 stumps over there. Thus, a pragmatically relevant context shift makes it the case that in 9, tomorrow, in its explicit and in its anaphorically linked implicit token, respectively, passes from referring to the day after the really present day to the referring to the day after the fictionally present day, while I, in its first and in its second anaphorically linked token, respectively, passes from referring to the real agent to referring to the fictionally relevant agent, that is, the ghost of Clarence. Yet to begin with, I may object as following to this weaker variant of the defense of the specific use of in as regards pictorial experience. In order to apply this solution to the case of in one must assume that the picture's vehicle is an element of the pictorial space with which, in that space, a constituent of the picture's subject, that is, the virgin, stands in the relation of being in, just as the real whole one talks about stands in the relation with that real vehicle of the virgin of the cat flap in the real space. But this assumption is rather implausible. Fans of pictorial space normally take it as being figure of space just containing the elements constituting the picture's subject. Yeah, so you can't escape the fiction. Once you're in the painting, once you're in the world, the fictional world, you can't talk about the real world. It's, you're breaking the fourth wall in some sense. If, when, the person in TV looks right at the camera and starts talking at you, you're breaking out of the fiction in some sense. And so the question of how do you actually do that if there's a real cat flap in the painting? then how do you get out of the fictional world into the real world? So, quite plausibly, that space is given perspectively, that is, as containing an internal perspective, yet no pictorial vehicle figures as one of its elements. Yeah, that's what, so kind of, let me say that again. From the internal perspective, there is no way to get there's no way to get out of it. There's no vehicle to get there's no element in the internal perspective that can talk about the outside world, the vehicle, as the lingo is going in here, how, like, the canvas, like how the picture was shown. There's no way that from an internal perspective you can break the fourth wall to get out to the vehicle there. Granted, the defender of this weaker variant may reply that one double prime must be meant differently as involving no relationship between the picture's vehicle and any element of the picture's subject, for in the picture there and in the picture here must be respectively meant as saying the same as in that region of the pictorial space and in that region of the real space. Okay, so they're just saying there's some overlap. There's overlap, but they're not overlap in the same space. So it's the same sort of region, but one's in pictorial space and one's in real space. But even so meant, moreover, this weaker variant is implausible for another and more important reason. Let me start from remarking that, in a standard illusory perception, one may non-veridically see an element mistaken for something else as standing in the being in relation with another such element in the real space. For example, when one mistakes a rope for a snake, one may non-veridically see the part of the rope that one mistakes for an illusory snake's eyes as being in the real space in another part of the rope that one mistakes for an illusory snake's head. So at time t, one may report one's unknowingly illusory perception by saying, "I see an eye in the snake's head." While at time t prime, once recovered from that illusion, one may report one's different veridical perception by saying, "I see a ring in the rope's top." Yeah, so you got fooled by an illusion, and then you can talk about it the same way, or you can talk about the same thing differently. So but wouldn't you want to say that? I don't know if the author's right here. Let's find out. Now, nobody would question that in is used in the same literal way both in 10 and 11 as referring to the same portion of the real space. Yet moreover, the same exactly happens in another more sophisticated case of illusory perception, namely when one mistakes a genuine trompe-l'oeil for what actually is the subject of the picture that experientially emerges in the pictorial experience one entertains after the realization of the mistake. Consider, in particular, a case of genuine trompe-l'oeil that mobilizes merely depicted holes. If at a time t, one mistakes a pavement actually presenting a depicted hole for a pavement containing a real hole, one may utter, "I see a hole in the pavement." By taking the pavement part that one mistakes for being a hole as being in the real space in the remaining part of the pavement. So I don't know if you have this in your part of the world. I've seen this once or twice, basically in the news, somewhere in the United States. There were people who were speeding on a road, a residential area, and the residents couldn't get the people to stop for whatever reason. You can argue about, like, policing and all that stuff, but what they did was they painted a child onto the road, and they did it in one of those like very long sort of paintings, so that when you're driving and you're looking at the road at an angle, it looks like the child is standing right there, because it's like the angle you're looking at makes the child look like they're standing there. So you could say you see a child standing in the pavement, in the road at that point. Now, what are you talking about when you're saying you see a child standing in the road? Did you mean to say there's an actual child, or did you mean to say you saw a painting of the child? And that's kind of what's happening here, because it got everyone to slow down, because people were confused about what they were seeing. They thought like there was a kid in the road and they had to slow down until they got closer and realized it was paint. But in that case, referring to the same portion of the real space. Well, close. I mean, there still might be differences. Like I said, the kid had to be painted on in a very long way to give the illusion of a hole. In the same way, if you were to paint anything on the road, it wouldn't actually look exactly like the a hole in the pavement, but you know, it's pretty close. You might be talking about the visual sort of like the way people see like the world, like their visual field, and that's what they're seeing. There's the same spot in their visual field. But then that gets way more complicated if you talk about the same spot in the visual field, because the girl is not actually in the pavement where the person thinks they are. The paint is like painted way farther out on the pavement. Okay. All right, continuing. And like I said, feel free to ask questions. This is like I said, this is not quite as I thought this would be like fun talking about paintings, but we're talking about metaphysics of in and philosophy of language, which I like also, but is just not what I was expecting. Okay, continuing. Note that one does not even have to appeal to a Berge-inspired consideration, as in the case of arthritis, in order to claim that one's epistemic condition does not affect the reference of the word one uses in the relevant report of one's intentional states. For in the case of 10 and 11, it would be weird to say that one's epistemic change, the fact that one passes from illusory perceiving a snake to veridically perceiving a rope, yields a semantic change in the reference of the preposition in. Mutatis mutandis, the same holds in the case of the two utterances of 12. It would be likewise weird to hold that a mere epistemic change, the fact that one passes from an illusory perception of a trompe-l'oeil to a pictorial experience of that trompe-l'oeil, yields a semantic change in that the token of in the second utterance of 12 passes to refer to a pictorial spatial relation instead of going on referring to a real spatial relation, as in the first utterance of 12. Thus, in the second utterance of 12, which reports a pictorial experience, no referential shift to a portion of an alleged pictorial space affects the preposition in. Mutatis mutandis, the same holds as regards the first explicit token of in 1, which inter alia makes the same kind of report, the report of a pictorial experience. Okay, so I'm actually a little doubtful. I think that this sort of arguing that it would be weird and unlikely for people to do this merely epistemic change. I'm not sure everyone would judge this to be merely epistemic. Like I was saying earlier, this is sort of a modal version of real versus fictional. So you're talking about two different worlds. And so you're saying, well, one was an epistemic change. I'm not sure everyone would just say it's a merely epistemic change. Like this mere epistemic right here, I'm not sure that's how everyone would read it. And so therefore I'm not entirely sure that people would be so in agreement with this. They might think you're doing something not quite, you're doing sort of a modal shift, and so that space in one world is not like space is different from space in another, but that's not only epistemic. It might be something more than epistemic or less than epistemic. But it's not just it's just not you changing, but we're talking about like whole like realms of existence. Now it might just be epistemic what you knew about the rope. But were we really talking about, when we talk about stuff, I guess this is the author's argument, when we're talking about stuff in the world, we're not talking about how we feel about it. We're talking about how we think about the things in the world. So what changed? Now you might actually get someone that would be like, no, when I made the mistake, I was only talking about what I thought. When I found out the truth, then I'm talking about the world. But, that would be, I could see someone doing that. But I don't know if this is as doubtful as the author is making it out right over here. So, but I mean, I think the author is mostly right, at least on this point, but I could see people arguing it. Okay, continuing. At this point, the defender of the specificity of the use of in as regards pictorial experience, but the feelings and the memories one has inform the logic. Exactly. This is the thing. I don't know exactly. Yeah, they inform the estimates and such. I agree. That's kind of what I was, part of what I was saying is that I agree with that. It's like you have background knowledge, and that is not merely just a knowledge issue. It has to do with how you like judge the world. And so I think people would kind of push back because they are using there's more stuff going on here than just merely like, oh, I believed one thing and then I stopped believing it. It's like, no, it's more complicated than that. And that's what I think you're saying, and I agree. It's like things go into how we form judgments, and it's not mere epistemics. Yeah. Merely epistemic might be too quick. That's fair. So, like, the phrasing might of yeah, that's exactly what I think is going on. It's that this merely epistemic is that the author is sort of forcing it into like this one sort of modality that just like having to do with knowledge. So if it's only having to do with knowledge and like you believed something and then you turned out it was wrong, so it was just you had a merely wrong belief. But I think that's kind of what they're trying to say here. But maybe there's other ways to slice it. There's more going into this than just what you believed and it happened to turn out to be wrong in that case. So, but still, the question is, do those other things change the way what you mean by being in that case? So the author wants to say, look, whatever it is, even if it's mere epistemic or something else, that doesn't change what you meant by being the word in. So, or, yeah. Oh, well, we'll see. Yeah, because they're trying to say the use of in is general. But at this point, when they're continuing, the defender of the specificity of the use of in, so then there's multiple ins. So, yeah. Yeah, okay. But I think that's kind of what the strategy was here, to limit it to the epistemic. But the question is, what else really would affect the meaning of the word in? Yeah. Well, all right, let's continue and see what happens. Or if you have more questions, feel free to ask. At this point, the defender of the specificity of the use of in, as regards to pictorial experience, may try a final move, which is in line with the one that I have considered at the very beginning of this section. If one claims that in is not ambiguous in its two tokens, one is forced to say that C is ambiguous in its two tokens, one explicit and the other implicit. Alright, so you're shifting where the ambiguity is. For the whole locution C in is ambiguous there in its two tokens. Again, one explicit and the other implicit. The first token contributes to mean a non-factive state of seeing. One sees that a Madonna is in the picture's vehicle, yet she is not there. On the contrary, the second token contributes to mean a factive state of seeing. One sees that a hole is in the picture's vehicle, and so it is. Yet if C in is ambiguous as a whole, there is no way of showing that this ambiguity depends either on the ambiguity of its first component, to C, or of its second component, it. Well, I thought in, C in. Thus, the possibility that in is ambiguous in one remains open. Okay, so appending the word see to this doesn't help, because we're talking about two different ways of seeing: to see the representational content or to see the physical medium that is being used to show the representational content. Okay. Yet, to begin with, one is not forced to assume that see in is ambiguous in one, for to see may not be ambiguous in it if it merely means the same as to have a visual experience, while it also keeps its own meaning throughout. Where's the it? I'm missing something. I'm sure there was an it above, but I don't know. The general non-facting of to see is an alternative reading that is most appreciated among non-philosophers. Indeed, we have seen this reading at work in 10 and 11, which respectively report an illusory, hence non-veridical, and a veridical perception. Moreover, it would be weird that to see were ambiguous in one, for as regards the similar reports of other intentional states, the relevant word means one and the same intentional state, independently of whether this is successful or not. Consider 13. Kantian. Yeah, I get the Kantian feel here. I desire a hole in the cheese as well as in the sun. Can Stephen King it? Yes, we'll have scary clowns. Is a very scary clown. We could have done the same thing with a scary clown. You didn't need to do the Madonna, but I suspect this person would get more readers with Madonna than a scary clown. It may be that the first state of desire 13 talks about is a successful state of desire, while the second state it talks about is an unsuccessful such state. Yet to desire is not ambiguous in it. Thus, there is no reason to hold that desiring in is ambiguous in it, so as to force one to ask whether such an ambiguity depends on an ambiguity of to desire or an ambiguity of in. Indeed, in is certainly not ambiguous in it. Mutatis mutandis, the same holds as regards see in 1. Freudian. You could go a few different ways with these analysis. The way I was going earlier, and I don't know where the author is going down here in this solution, is, the inness, the being in, is one thing, but again, the question of where the meaning of the content versus the vehicle versus the representational content, that line is not so clear, and I think that's probably why isn't that? Maybe that's where we're going, but how is it that we haven't talked about that? Because there is no clear line between the paint and what is painted. It's it's kind of hard when you get down to it. It's you see the yellow paint, but no one really sees a splotch. They see something else. No one sees abstract colors. That's not what we ever see, really. So that's the simple phenomenological evidence that is sort of shows you that it's not so clear that you see a crack, or do you see a fold in the clothing. Well, maybe you can identify, maybe it doesn't matter. And so this is sort of I think there's definitely some ambiguity there, and that would be where the phenomenological evidence would lead me, is that we're not talking about being in, but we are talking about what it means to be real versus pictorial. And those are bigger words just off the top of the head. Oh, color is the worst example, isn't it? Yeah, you see, if you just go for straight colors, you get yourself into a whole bunch of trouble. So, because you're trying to break it down to some sort of experience then, and then all of a sudden, not so sure what we're talking about. Alright, but let's see what the author has to say. The solution. Thus, what originally seemed to be just a debatable linguistic evidence has turned out to be a rather strong one. Because all color perception is abstract. Yeah, see, once you start talking about how you perceive color, then you get into a whole big mess on its own. You don't even need to talk about painting. There's just whole mounds of philosophy you can talk about color perception. It's and so, that seems like the obvious spot to go beat on if you're going to, just the phenomenology of whatever you're looking at. It seems like that's where we should be the obvious spot to focus. Okay, continuing. Thus, what originally seemed to be just a debatable linguistic evidence has turned out to be a rather strong one. In one, the very same spatial relation of being in is designated both by the explicit token and by the anaphorically linked implicit token of in, even if that relation is actually instantiated in the second case, where its relata are the picture's vehicle and the whole, but not in the first case, where its relata are again the picture's vehicle and the picture's subject. Neither a meaning shift nor a pragmatically determined referential shift occurs in one, as far as in is concerned. Now, the original appearances notwithstanding, one might think that this linguistic result is rather trivial, for undoubtedly in means the very same spatial relation of being in both tokens of one, since a Madonna does not refer there to a component of the picture's subject. Instead, it shifts its reference to a component of the picture's vehicle, a partial pictorial representation of a Madonna, in order to say that such a component is located in the very vehicle. There is plenty of evidence that often that shifts occurs, as when one says there is a lion in the garden, meaning that there is a lion representation, a statue of a lion, in it. Yet, although the referential shift certainly exists in general, various people, for example Lopez 2010, doubt that it occurs in senses like one, and indeed the case of 12 shows that this is hardly the case. Beforehand we saw that, as regards the two tokens of in respectively involve the utterances of 12, uttered while entertaining a mere illusory perception and pictorial experience, respectively, that epistemic change hardly involves a semantic change. A fortiori, this is the case as regards the two tokens of whole involved in such utterances, but this means that the second token does not shift its reference to a whole representation. Mutatis mutandis, the same holds of a Madonna in one. It still refers to a component of that picture's subject. Thus, first of all, this linguistic result is not trivial at all. Interestingly enough, it has the independent merit of showing that as far as basically 2D pictures vehicles are concerned, the spatial relation of being in question does not shrink to a mere containment relation. First, note that when one says that one sees a real hole in a picture's vehicle, one does not strictly speaking mean that the hole is contained in the vehicle, but rather that, while the whole surface coincides with the vehicle's surface, the hole itself is, so to speak, extended beyond the vehicle's own thickness. Suppose indeed again, as I did in the previous section, the hole is filled by a passing cat. Then one may utter, "I see a cat in the picture," meaning that one sees a cat in the portion of the real space extending typically behind the vehicle's own thickness. I say typically, for sometimes what is seen in the vehicle may also be extended in front of the vehicle's own thickness. Indeed, one may utter 14 also when only the back part of the cat is still contained in the vehicle, the rest standing in front of it. Okay, so I mean, sure, like paintings aren't like 2D objects. They exist also in 3D space, and then the physical object of a painting, it has like significant like width. And it's like the painting itself is not just like the piece of like cloth on it. It's also in some sense the presentation. We're not just talking about only the painting part, but the frame and the whole area around it. So this whole thing is getting mixed up right here. Well, not mixed up, but the author is like sort of like trying to use this to show that you can't even identify the being in the painting in terms of the vehicle as only the physical area, but it also encompasses a bunch more. It's like, sure, and so I guess they're gonna go this way. But it's like, yeah, it's like, come on. It's like, yeah, we do kind of know that, but it's like, let's just see what they're making of it. Okay. Okay, so it could be sent behind the vehicle's own surface. Alright, so let me just reread that. Second, if the very same spatial relation is actually mobilized also when a picture's subject is concerned, as with one, this means that such a subject is seen as occupying a region of the real space that's typically extended behind the vehicle's own surface. Indeed, the version of the cat flap, the version is seen as being immediately behind the picture's vehicle, but the curtain is seen as far behind, while the wooden base is seen as extending from the vehicle surface up to the curtain. I again say typically, for sometimes the picture subject is instead seen as extending in front of the picture's vehicle, as with the merely protruding pictures, or even both ways as with Pete Burrell's Picasso's Escaping Criticism. Yeah, so in some sense things can look like they're popping out of paintings, they also look like they're going back from paintings. So there's a huge amount of space. Bubba Bloop, thank you for the subscription. 3 months, oh my god. It's getting late, man. We're getting tired and old. But yeah, thank you. 3 months. It's wow. But thanks for stopping by too. I appreciate it. We are reading this paper on what I thought was going to be some like art criticism, but instead it's about talking about the relation of the artwork in the painting versus what it means to be in the physical like vehicle of the painting, like the wood and the canvas and the paint, and like maybe a hole in the canvas, and how that could relate to what is represented in the canvas, especially if the canvas itself has a hole painted into it. So yeah, in this case, we see the left leg of the boy the picture presents as being behind the location where the canvas is, where his torso is seen as standing in that very location, yet his head, his left hand, and his right foot are seen as standing in front of it, in order to convey the overall impression that the boy is getting out of the picture. So he must be one of these like climbing out of, like, I don't know, I can do this like climbing out of my little box here that you guys are looking at me in. So yeah, he must be climbing out of the own picture. In this respect, suppose that along with what I hypothesized in the previous section, the Monte Murano fresco were modified as regards its subject by adding the depiction of a forward-moving cat as crouched under the Madonna. Then, in the above situation, when one utters 14 in order to talk of a real cat, one could even have a report also involving the depicted cat with to see in its aforementioned non-factive meaning to have a visual experience. I see 2 passing cats in the picture. You see, here we go. This is what we were saying earlier, cinesemiotics. To have a visual experience, not to see the representation, but to have some sort of visual experience here. So, okay. Finally got there. Yet, moreover, the above linguistic evidence would not be conclusive if there were no theory of pictorial experience that supplied it with an ultimate justification. Oh, dude, thank you, Cinesemiotics, for the subscription. Appreciate that, Cinesemiotics. Everyone's subbing today. Yay! Thank you. Support my beer or whatever. Appreciate it. Where was I? Now I lost my spot. Yet, moreover, the above linguistic evidence would not be conclusive if there were no theory of pictorial experience that supplied it with an ultimate justification. Language use is often affected by vagueness of meaning. Thus, the fact that we have reports such as the above ones would remain a sort of linguistic curiosity if we did not have a theory of pictorial experience that explains why we so express ourselves in such reports. You know, what is... it's fine. Fortunately enough, there is such a theory. Partially, at least. The experience of seeing something in a picture's vehicle is what the above case of realizing that something is a genuine trompe-l'oeil reveals, a knowingly illusory perception of the picture's vehicle as the picture's subject. I say partially, for pictorial experience also includes a veridical perception of the picture's vehicle. Indeed, according to this theory, pictorial experience is twofold, just as in Molheim's seeing in. In the first configurational fold, one veridically perceives the picture's vehicle. In the second recognitional fold, one illusory, hence non-veridically, perceives the picture's subject. Moreover, this illusory perception is knowingly illusory one. The experiencer perceptually knows that the picture's subject is not there, precisely because she perceptually knows that the picture's vehicle is there. Thus, in the recognitional fold, the picture's subject is non-veridically seen as standing in the picture's vehicle, just as the aforementioned illusory perception reported by the first utterance of 12, in which one mistakes as part of a genuine trompe-l'oeil for what actually is a part of the subject of the experientially emerging picture. Yeah, so you can... Oh, you were promoted by Bloop? Oh, you're prompted by Bloop. Well, thank you, Bloop. Double thank you, Bloop, and thank you again, Cinesemiotics. Appreciate it. So, trompe-l'oeils. I mean, I'm a little disappointed we didn't have more pictures in this paper, but that's okay. Excuse me, a sneeze for a second. Okay, let's just get through the end of this and make any comments. Like that, I'm still going to sneeze. Excuse me. Like that perception, the recognitional fold is illusory. These two items are taken as instantiating in the real space the being in relation. Yet, of course, since the perception is illusory, they are not actually instantiating that relation. Instead, what actually instantiates that relation are further real physical items the picture's vehicle is actually spatially connected with, such as, for example, real holes, as in the version of the cat flap. The items that are perceptually and veridically grasped in the configurational fold of the pictorial experience. In this theoretical framework, speaking of a pictorial space, as Wolheim himself did, as we saw before, is simply an improper way of talking of the real space. The pictorial space is just the real space as it would have been if the recognitional fold had been not illusory. But wait a sec, but isn't that the whole point? That you're in fictional space because it is not the real space. I mean, but that's the whole point of fictions. But, okay. But that, why is that improper is the question then? I mean, it's just it's not improper, it would just be alternative to way of talking about real space that happens to be fictional space. Okay, let me continue. Maybe author says something there. I just find this use of the word improper. I mean, how else are you going to talk about something that isn't right there? You're only talking about things. Very rarely do we talk exactly about what exists. And so I don't see this as an improper way of speaking. But okay. Yet, unlike the aforementioned illusory perception, the recognitional fold is a knowingly illusory perception. Indeed, one knows that the picture's subject is not out there. For one knows that what is out there is actually another thing, namely the picture's vehicle itself that one knowingly sees in the other, yet veridically configurational fold of the pictorial experience. Yeah. But how else are we going to talk about this? I mean, it's okay. It's okay to say it this way. Yeah, alright, fine. Interestingly enough, in so explaining the linguistic data, this theory of pictorial experience, is better than a similar theory in the philosophical market. According to this other theory, by Kulvicki and Newell, pictorial experience is a form of seeing through, where the background object is seen, maybe nomologically and possibly, as merely behind or even merely in front of the transparent layer. In Hopkins' terms, seeing in taken as seeing through problematically amounts to 1 representing P, the picture's vehicle, as the difference delta 1 from one's point of view, and 2 representing O, the picture's subject, as the difference delta 2 from one's point of view, where delta 1 is not equal to delta 2. This theory certainly bears a similarity with my own theory, for according to it, pictorial experience illusory locates the picture's subject in the same real space as the picture's vehicle. Yet, unlike my theory, this theory does not capture the proper spatial relation that in this experience holds between the picture's vehicle and the picture's subject. In the recognitional fold of the pictorial experience, the picture's subject is knowingly illusory seen as extending from the area in which the picture's vehicle is veridically seen in the configurational fold of that experience as standing either backwards, as in standard pictures, or forwards as merely protruding pictures, or even both as in escaping criticism case. This shows why, unlike the theory, my theory can properly explain the linguistic evidence that sentences like one present. Alright, so the theory here is not saying that you're in a different world. It's sort of like crushing the see, what they're saying here is like, well, the space is getting crushed, where you've got two different spatial relations in the same area, but you're seeing through. So you've got a distance, you're doing two different distance relations in the same area. You're sort of using a different sort of measuring device. But this theory is saying in the same real space as the picture's vehicle. So the Madonna exists in that same space. But for according to it, the pictorial space illusory. Okay. So no, the other one is in the same real space, but in the recognitional fold, the picture experience knowingly. Am I getting this backwards? Unlike my theory, this theory does not capture the proper spatial relation that experience holds between the picture's vehicle. In the recognitional fold, the picture subject is knowingly illusory seen as extending from that, and so this theory can talk about it because it can go beyond the space of the because the author is here saying you can go beyond the space that exists within the bounds of the painting. Okay, so Sinesemiak says, the idea is that we regard our real space in a way that seems oddly like the way we regard fictional space. Yeah, see, that's part of the issue here. But but the question is, what does it mean to regard here? And I'm not even 100% sure with the different things going on in this last section. That I understand all the different little things going on, because what counts as illusory, what counts as real, and what is the difference here? Because in the author is what I thought they were saying was basically saying you've got you're looking at something improperly, but it's okay because it's improper. So it's just the same real space, but you're doing it wrong. In some sense. That's what the author, I think, is saying here. Now, the other people were saying, look, you've got different measurement things going on, but that's not what is going to happen because you have more measurements than you can actually make because you're using different measurements because, artists do different things. Like, so you can have like different parts coming out, different parts going back, and so you can't really judge how space is working in all the cases. So the author here is saying, look, we just know that it's real space, but we're doing it improperly on purpose for the point of understanding the content. Now, I'm not 100% sure because I'm not really sure what the status of improper means then. How do we measure improperly real space? So simply being an improper way of talking about real space, but it's like, well, what is that improper way? What is going on then? And so I'm a little uncertain about this improper. I kind of get what's going on here where you've got like an alternative measuring thing. I mean, I don't think that's right. You have to have like a whole world's version of measuring. So that would be a different thing. And then the measuring in that world would be the same as the measuring in our world, actually. But it would be in the other world. So it would just be like seeing something off at a distance is just very small. So it's like, okay, but that's what you see in a painting. You see something at a different like scale. And that's okay. That's not a big deal. So let's get to the conclusion and then we can go talk about everything else. Okay, to sum up, appearances notwithstanding, we must take as correct a given linguistic evidence purportedly showing that we literally use the preposition in as still meaning the spatial relation of being in, also when we say that we see the picture subject in the picture's vehicle. Such a correctness does not only depend on the fact that from the linguistic point of view, it is very hard to dispense with that evidence. It also and more importantly depends on the fact that the relation that is grasped in the pictorial experience as holding between the picture's subject and the picture's vehicle is exactly that spatial relation, or so my theory claims. Okay, so basically the author is just like putting their foot down saying, no, there's only one thing. Dangerous 7, welcome, Dangerous 7, thank you for being here, what's up? They use this in game theory. How do they use painting theory in game theory? I mean, this is a question of how do you do that? Now, if you're saying in game theory you have to go play by someone else's rules in that game theory, yeah, I'm with you there. But in this case, this person's arguing that like someone else is using an improper measure. And in game theory, I don't know if they do that. Maybe they do. Yeah, you have to give me some more background on what you mean by how they're using this sort of thing in game theory. Because like this just improper is getting to me right here. So let me reread this bit here because this is what I think where the crux of the argument is. So you know what you see in the painting is in some sense an illusion. Like that perception, the recognitional fold is illusory. You know that the Madonna is not standing in front of you. You know this. And that's kind of the point here. But you're still using the being in relation in that illusion. Just because it's an illusion doesn't stop you from using the same sort of inness. Because the illusion could be very realistic and you're basically saying the same thing you mean in the real world in the illusion. Because the illusion is like a real world. So instead, what actually instantiate that relation are further real physical items in the picture's vehicle is actually spatially connected with, such as, for example, real holes. The items that are perceptually and veridically grasped in the configurational fold of the pictorial experience. So it's saying it's parasitic on the real world. But I mean, no one doubted that. If you have something in a picture, it has to relate to like things you know. That's not really a question. But in this theoretical framework, they continue. Speaking of a pictorial space, as Wolheim himself did it, as we saw, is simply an improper way of talking of the real space. So it's saying it's parasitic and improper way of talking on it. And so in a sense, it's the same in, but it's a bad use of in. See, this is killing me, this bad, because I'm getting a very moral sort of improper, judgmental understanding of improper, and maybe that's not the right way of interpreting this, but it's really sort of hammering that the real is what's more important here, and I'm not so sure about that because like the evidence said, it's just the same words we use when talking about fictions as when we're talking about the real world. And do we really know what the real world is? No, we don't know what the real world is. So it's like, what's the status of the in the real world if we don't even know what's real half the time anyway? We know some things are real. We don't know everything. So we use in just willy-nilly. It doesn't make any difference. So they continue. The pictorial space is just the real space as it would have been if the recognitional fold had not been illusory. See, why are we so sure that the recognitional fold is illusory? Couldn't you be fooled about the being an illusion? Maybe you thought something was an illusion. Turns out it's real. And then it goes back. And so then the inness in that case would actually have not been the fake being in, the improper use of way of talking. It turns out it was the real way of talking, and it was just an epistemic problem you had, as we were discussing before. But see, that's the problem. We don't know when we're talking improperly along this lines. Yes, there's something to do with us understanding the difference between something is just a painting and something is actually real. Are we in the presence of the Madonna? No. We know this. But it's like, so what? So what? It's not an improper way of talking. And so this is kind of funky. I was kind of with the author most of the way here too, until like they just said, you know what, we're going to put our foot down and we're going to stick to the real being the real, and then everything else is just not as good way of talking about it. It's like, no. I'm not sure what the real is, and so why do I value judge all the other ways of using those words? So that's kind of my beef with what's going on right here. That's not to say it's a bad paper. It's a very good paper. I mean, this area and how to talk about fiction is a very difficult thing to do, to stay clear on it. So if you guys have any questions, you folks, not necessarily guys, let me know. But like, let's see, is there anything else really interesting to say about this? You know, this is a nice paper. I would have liked more examples because they had so many opportunities for like putting in some illusions, some trompe-l'oeil. You know, all you had to do is like do one of these dealies. The Necker cube. And like this is a trompe-l'oeil because you look at it and you think you see a 3D cube and it's obviously a two-dimensional space. So all they had to do was put a Necker cube on this and it would have been more fun because then you could have talked about this sort of thing. Is like, can you see it one way? Can you see it the other way? So like in one sense, do you see like this box in front, and then other times like, so this is in front, and then what you could also do later is then you could see, let's undo that, and then later you could see this box in front, and that's like so this is the sort of thing like you could have done with this. And so I'm a little grumpy that like I feel like the author missed a bunch of opportunities. They had this cool painting, and then they could have had a lot of other opportunities to for see one thing one way and another thing the other way. And of course, you guys are seeing this as a, not you guys, I keep saying, I gotta stop saying that. You folks are seeing this as like broadcast through pixels over the interwebs, and it's not like a real, like, what's the medium? The vehicle is some screen you're seeing somewhere. So it's like it's completely different from the content of a cube. There is no cube. You're seeing pixels on a screen, and even that, like, maybe is not what you're seeing. You're seeing something. So it's like, then we can talk about the phenomenology of this. But again, I'm a little concerned that the way the author is sort of prioritizing the real, when basically this is all we have nowadays are these sort of screens and things, and we have the real too. I mean, like, this is an actual quarter to me, but like to you guys it's not. It's some sort of thing on a screen. And so this sort of way of saying that everything is parasitic on the real, it's like, well, I'm not so sure what you mean by real anymore, and I'm not so sure what you mean by fiction anymore, because this is really what's at stake here. And that's kind of what art is playing off of a lot of times, like that we don't quite know exactly what counts as the real, and so then you get to see different perspectives on the real in art. So, but in this one case it's not exactly what was going on, but like, you know, this is why the sort of over-reliance on what we know to be illusory, like this sort of locution here, concerns me about this paper. And like I said, this is actually a fine theory. I'm not in love with all the things that are going on in it. So, yeah. Yeah, I want to see the cat flap. I can't see the cat flap. Yanginator, how you doing? We're talking about this painting here, where apparently there's a cat flap in it. Like this right here. This is a cat flap, like painted into the painting. So like as if a cat would like walk through it. So it's kind of funny. I think that's what this is right here. So like a cat could potentially well, of course, aren't we all practicing Minesweeper? I almost played Minesweeper, but I was like, no, I'm just gonna read a philosophy paper instead. I really should practice a bit more my Minesweeping. I'm very bad. You were kicking my butt the other day, I think. I just got lucky. Anyway. Well, you can be very excited to see the Yanginator. That's okay. Bloop is just an excitable person. Anywho's, so let's see. Anything else I want to say about this? Anything y'all want to say about this? Yeah, so in the end, saying that there's a cat flap in this painting is just a improper way of speaking. I mean, that just guarantees that we're always in the real world. But I find that such a funky thing. Because then it's like, well, yeah, we're in the real world, but we don't talk about, like, we're not talking about physical reality all the time. We almost never talk about, like, physical reality. We're talking about things that are going on that, you know, they're related to physical reality, but we're not talking about, like, the physical material status of the world. Like, I'm not talking about, like, the status of, like, if I talked about you, I'm not talking about, like, the status of your body. Like, I'm not talking about the physics of your body. Like, we don't talk about that. And so I find the subject that, like, the baseline that this author is taking to be the wrong baseline in some sense. Okay. So, that, like, I feel... Let's see, what time is it anyway? Oh, it's midnight. I gotta go to work in the morning, folks. I'm sorry, I can't stay up. But I do thank you all for being here. If you have any questions, it's like... Yeah, so if you have any questions, last opportunity. I probably can't stream tomorrow either. I gotta be up early on Friday. Maybe I will. We'll see. Is anyone else streaming right now? I know, I'm sorry, the Yanginator. I'm sorry. This is my problem. I do short streams sometimes, and you don't give people an opportunity to catch up. I mean, to get there, really. Because, like, that's why you have to stream for a few hours. It's just the nature of streaming. Yeah, I was not expecting to read a paper on inness for like an hour and a half, though, either. So these things happen. But that's why it's philosophy roulette. Evan is? Okay, yeah, let's go run over to Evan's then. Let me just double check things are working. Give me a half second. Cause I'm trying not to screw up spelling Evan Gao. Okay. Oh, he's playing GeoGuessr, cool. Alright, yeah, so let's go run over there. Yeah, thanks for everyone for being here, and Semiotics, thank you again for the subscription. Baba Bloop, thank you again for the subscription. Everyone have a great night, and I'm raiding right now. Bye. Yes, Yanginator, we're raiding. Yeah, right. Like, you didn't know that, Bubba Bloop.